Hello.
Hey, Mike. How are you?
Great. It's great to be with you.
Thank you so much for joining my show, Moments with Masters. And before we dive into our conversation, let me introduce you to my audience. Welcome, everybody, to the Moments with Masters. And today we have a remarkable guest who thrives on creatively serving in one on one coaching agreements with those who have an entrepreneurial spirit and a burning desire to nurture the relationships that hold the utmost importance. Our guest is no ordinary coach. Since 2012, he has been an expert EOS implementer, specializing in the entrepreneurial operating system. With an impressive track record, he has coached over 75 privately held entrepreneurial companies transform their lives and their businesses. Throughout his career, he has conducted over 800 full-day sessions with entrepreneurial leadership teams, leaving a lasting impact on their companies. But his passion extends beyond the boardroom. Together with his wife Jill, they have empowered over 100 couples to experience deeper connections, heightened excitement, and unwavering love in their family lives. For over a decade, they have successfully applied EOS principles to foster an extraordinary family dynamic. Before immersing himself in the world of coaching, our guest led his family's third generation business through the tumultuous 2007 economic downturn in Michigan, defying the odds with remarkable growth of over 60%. This experience fueled his unwavering dedication to serving family businesses and becoming a beacon of guidance for others facing similar obstacles. Today, he not only teaches but also facilitates and coaches individuals with an entrepreneurial spirit, unveiling the greatness within them and helping them align with the present moment. Join us as we delve into the wisdom and insights of this extraordinary individual and discover how his transformative approach can elevate your entrepreneurial journey and your personal life. And get ready to unlock your true potential and embrace the power of the present. Mike Kotsis. Mike, thank you so
Uh,
much. You are the master of the day on my show, Moments with Masters.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me to be here. And I'm so excited to be with you today, Ranjan. It's a true honor to be with you.
Thank you so much, Mike. Mike, all of us have stories, a narrative always going on in our heads. At the same time, I in my workshops and coachings, we explore what have been some of the most significant turning points in your life, which which impacted you deeply in a way that shifted your worldview. So what was or one or two most significant turning points in your life which impacted you deeply and shifted how you experience life and how you see life and see yourself?
Sure. Thanks for that question. And first, Ranjan, I would love to interview you for your own show of the masters because you are a master in watching what you've grown through and experienced in the creation of the ultimate experience, Mumbai, and the inside out growth that you've had. Oh my gosh, that blows me away. And I honor and acknowledge you for that and for you are one that does the work. And I love that.
Thank you so much, Mike. And I thank you for being with me on this journey. And I thank you for you coaching me to becoming the leader that I wanted to be. And the scale of this event was so big that I had to be an international leader to create an international summit. And I had to be a leader within, first of all. And uh, I thank you for your support through your coaching on this journey to help me be that leader.
You're welcome. You're welcome. So to answer your question, significant turning points. The first one that comes to me, I don't know that it was a turning point. It was just a way that I grew up with that, as you asked me that question, I just remember my childhood. I grew up in our family. I'm the oldest of three. My younger sister was born special needs, and she took 7 years to learn how to walk. She can't speak. She's 100% dependent on others. And while there was no one significant event in my childhood, what just came to me in that was just the cultivation of compassion, care, and what my sister could teach me in her way of being, and just in being content and being playful with whatever she had in front of her. And she never complained. She never needed anything. She was content with where she was. And I just see something deeper in that for me. And that's impacted my entire life through to this day. That has been really significant. And, I hadn't really thought about it in that way before, but that was one. And just seeing God's presence in her life, that impacted her entire family and still does. Beyond that, if a business related turning point was later in, I guess early on in my career, when I was a consultant and an engineer, analytical planner, really big on, planning, efficiency, organization. And I remember helping my family business on the side while I was in my full-time career after college, and really needing to come back full-time to really make an impact to help my father and uncles to retirement. And I had no idea how I was going to do that. I just wanted to uphold my grandfather's legacy in our family food service distribution business. And I took the weight of the world on my shoulders. I took on everything in that business. I wanted to uphold our family legacy. I wanted to provide a path of financial independence for my own family. I was single at the time. I had met Jill during that time. And thank God. God brings blessings into your life, whether you realize it or not, at the right times. And thank God he brought her into my life at that point. She is everything to me. She helped me to see greatness in myself that I couldn't see. Because I piled so much stress on my shoulders, I created an autoimmune condition. I wouldn't have called it, I created that back in the day. I had this thing happen to me, is the way I would have described it. And I lost 50 pounds in a month. My skin tissue started tightening from my elbows down and my knees down, so much to the fact that this is as straight as I could make my hands. I couldn't do this anymore. I couldn't make my hands flat. And it was terrifying. Eventually doctors said I was crazy. They said, they don't know what's, they said, there's nothing wrong with you. I said, yeah, this is not normal. And then I eventually found a specialist at U of M Ann Arbor, University of Michigan, Ann Arbor. And they said that you have an autoimmune condition caused by stress. In that moment hit me that I created all of this. I put the weight of the world on my shoulders. I was trying to be the savior of our company. And it's maybe not coincidental. The logo of our family business is Atlas, the guy that holds up the world. Right. And I felt like I was that guy trying to hold up the world, except I couldn't. And my body was screaming at me that I couldn't. That was my wake-up call, that I needed to build a team and put a system in place so that it wasn't dependent on me. And once we did, we were able to grow it to a whole nother level of family and non-family, and just really get it to a place where my cousin was able to continue running with the business on his own. And I was able to help others to be able to do what has impacted me so significantly in my life.
It's not just with you, Mike. I feel, even I have seen many new business leaders and novice entrepreneurs you know, creating their businesses as if stress is an essential part of creating their returns on investment, ROIs, and creating a lifestyle as if the logo that you spoke about, and carrying the whole planet on their shoulders, and that starts resulting in fatigue and stress, and the ruptures in the relationships, and the decision making going wrong, and all these things. But then when you talk about creating a being centered business, or creating a being centered life, what has been your experience as an EOS implementer? How, in the first place, the thinking that business is a very practical thing, and creating a being-centered business is like is a vague or an abstract thing, and treating how you think and how you create as two different ways, when you talk about business. And most importantly, entrepreneurs and business leaders getting trapped in their own head, and getting trapped in the systems and the structures, so much so that they forget that they are the ones who are actually projecting that, and they are the ones who are actually creating that. And that, when turns into their culture, into their relations, into their communication, into their messaging, into their marketing strategies, into their branding strategies, everything. But that gap, to accept the fact that it's us who are actually creating it. I would love to listen your experience and your insights on creating a being-centered business.
Sure, thanks. That's a great question, and my experience with this, I guess, just a little bit of context, because not everybody might know what an EOS implementer is. And so what that means, EOS is a framework, it's a methodology, essentially for harnessing human energy in a business, entrepreneurial business, in one direction, to help get everybody on the same page with a common vision, build a plan, more accountability, and do it in a healthy way where everybody's presenting and being a united front, healthy, cohesive, all the way top to bottom in the organization. And so it's a simple set of tools that helps an entrepreneurial team to do that. So what stands out to me is every human being is at a different place on this journey that we call life, and a different level of awareness to the effect that we're creating our own reality. Most people, when I say most people, I'm talking to myself first, because I wouldn't have been ready to hear this back then when I was running my family business. What I believe, and what I've noticed as a pattern, is that what in an entrepreneurial company, 10 to 250 employee size organization, that the founding owner entrepreneur, they're wanting to create this mission, and they're trying to impact the world in some way that's meaningful to them. And then they do it successfully, and they get to this place where they get stuck and things get harder. Well, this is where EOS is what I look at it as it helps to calm the noise that they have going on in their minds. It helps to settle that stuff, the inks, the pushing, the pulling, and helps to just helps everybody to chill out a little bit, and to not only think we need to go this way, but to know that everybody around the table is aligned with going that way. And what I've noticed is the more that teams begin to align that, and the noise starts calming in their minds, they all of a sudden have a different listening. They have a different listening. They're ready to hear things that may be showing up differently in their home life, differently in what they're wanting to create for their business. They're not essentially in a place typically of, I want to create this amazing thing. Like, usually at the beginning, they want to fix all these problems. So they have a lot of problems and issues that they want to fix. And as they start to gain get their heads above water a little bit, I notice they get to a place where they're ready to hear a different message. And as an example, there's one team I'm thinking of where I had separate one-on-one coaching agreements with 3 of the leaders who happened to be also related. They were family, 2 were brothers, 1 was a cousin, and they were successful. They got their business to a successful place, but still they felt a little unsettled. They were a little unsure on bringing up certain topics with each other because some things were still a little bit taboo for them. If they weren't big things, they were just little everyday things that they habitually began to learn in a way of being with each other. And as they started to work with them individually, they started to just relax around this defined personality or this defined role that they thought they had to be for the business, as opposed to showing up with more of who they already are without a filter, without I think without a restriction, without kind of a holding back. And so when they were able to express without the fear of being judged, or more importantly, without the judgment of themselves, they showed up in a way ready to create. And instead of what do we want to fix, what do we want to create over this quarter, over this year? What do we want to create? And being very intentional about that. And what I see that happens is that the energy level rises. They become more creative. They become more playful, more enjoyable to be around. And as they're in that place, when they create from that place, the energy that's around that pulls things together faster for the business tangibly than they could have analytically planned, figured out, pushed their way through, willed their way through as they went through that. That's one way that I see that show up for teams.
Fantastic, Mike. Mike, what reminds me is, that this mindset that well-being or your way of being is a result of the business that you create. Or maybe, people are waiting for something to be created on the outside to give them an evidence of success, and postponing your way of being to the future and thinking that I'll be something when, or I'll be in a certain kind of a person when I create success and evidence of success on the outside. And then they circumscribe, they limit themselves into the business life and normally tend to forget to align their personal life with the business life, or their family lives with the business life, as if family can wait, but the business can't wait. And as if business is something that can be measured and the progress can be tracked. And since you don't have something to track on the family front, it can wait. So it can be relegated to the background. But at the end of, maybe, it's like after 20 years of success in business, I'll come back and I can restore everything and I can revamp my family life. But then by the time, okay, I'll leave it to you. What's been your experience in aligning personal life with professional life, family life with business life, while creating the desired results?
Yeah, that's a brilliant question, and I appreciate that. I'll use myself as the example of what life appeared to me in the past, and kind of how that shifted and what that's different now. Because if I relate it to the past, I mean, your question is spot on. It's like, hey, in the business, like, we align all this energy in one direction, we experience great results. Well, and then in the family life, it's like a little chaotic. It's a little disorganized. And so or even more so significantly, I saw as teams, an entrepreneur tends to get into a business because they have a passion or a cause that they want to further, and they want to create a great family life for their spouse, their kids, all of that. And then they tend to forget about that and sacrifice themselves for the business so that they can live this other life. And so what happened is that I saw teams moving forward in this way where they were getting really successful, but then they were starting to really have broken home lives. They were starting to get separations, divorces, and they just all this, they didn't know why. And so with Jill and I, so Jill and I have had a habit in our lives of being very planning, achievement oriented, not unlike many entrepreneurs out there. And we had applied the EOS tools to our family life for so many years for that very reason, so that it could just be a time and place for us to have real deep, meaningful conversations with a created space to do that. And that helped us early on to really be very intentional about our relationship, date nights and communication and just being on the same page. And we helped other entrepreneurial couples to do the same. And on that journey, what we realized is we got good at planning and achieving, so that like it just became very natural, just like kind of a way of being for us. But I remember in one of my coaching sessions with one of my coaches at the time, that was Michael Neal, and we had a conversation. I had my business plan and my family plan, and I showed up like, this is what I'm all about. And he looked at it, and he didn't even really read it. He just kind of looked at it. He just asked me, why are you doing this? Ranjan, I looked at him and I said, I don't know. I don't know. In that moment, this whole thing kind of flashed in my mind that I saw something differently, that I'm wearing this shirt for a reason, CEO of your own happiness, is that I always believed that happiness comes from inside of me. What I found is that I had a habit of practicing that it didn't. And what I mean by that is by the way I related to goal setting, the way that we would set our plan and go out and get it. I would make it more about achieving the goal and pushing my way through than I would sacrifice the now to get to the then. So, for example, once we get enough clients, then we can go on this vacation, or then we can buy this, our car, or then you fill in a blank, like anything goes from there. And so what I didn't realize is that my habitual actions was inadvertently putting happiness out there somewhere into the future. And what dawned on me in that moment was that my actions weren't aligned with what I truly believed. And so in a conversation with Jill, I shared with her this insight, and we stopped. We stopped all the family planning and all the tools in our home life, because we realized that God's miraculous present moment has everything that we need, always. And to the degree I can acknowledge that, welcome that, and bless that, everything shows up when it's supposed to. My energy and enjoyment goes up on day-to-day life, and then there's no unintended need of an outcome to happen. I can then have a goal, but it's not about having the goal. It's about enjoying the moment while pointing our energy in one direction. And so as we began to live that life and just being more at peace with right now, with whatever shows up, whether I liked it or didn't like it, being at peace and welcoming that and blessing that, I started to see the miracles start showing up in my life. Miracles in everyday life, personally and professionally, started just occurring. I'm sure they always were. I just never could see them before, and I wouldn't acknowledge them. And that was just a completely different mindset and a completely different heart set and spirit set for my entire being. Completely different. And what I didn't realize, Ranjan, is that how much energy we were spending and pushing and willing on the achieving habit that we had in our life. Now, I'm not throwing it under the bus. It was a great service. We were doing the best we could with what we knew at the time. But now once you see an insight, a sight from within, all of a sudden, like just things in our life didn't make sense in that way anymore. And And, please hear this for anybody that's planning at their home. I'm not telling you not to plan, and I'm not telling you to go in the other direction. I'm talking about my personal experience and what showed up for us and what's true for us in our lives.
It was the same, Mike. I know, since you know me, it took me over 2 decades of chase game and pushing my happiness into my accomplishments, and then understanding and experiencing the shift from, the achievement chase to being in the moment and experiencing life in the now. But at the same time, when it comes to business and creating a business, and since you're talking about, you are an expert on entrepreneurial operating system, it's like any business owner or any entrepreneur, when they kind of learn about new systems, they think that this system is going to help us, but as if I have nothing to do with this system, as if I personally, I'm not connected, and maybe just this system can try. So what's been your experience? I feel that if it's about creating inside out, then it's about first installing an entrepreneurial mindset before you even think of external systems coming to your rescue. So what would your suggestions be for new entrepreneurs or people who have been exploring and they feel they're stuck somewhere, about coming back to the basics of their mindset and kind of rebooting their own entrepreneurial mindset in a way that they start using these systems on the outside to create their entrepreneurial journey?
Yeah, it's a great question. It'd be great to not have to go to that pain place to then get this thing we think can fix it, to then see who we are, right? If we could already see who we are right now, without going through this inadvertent pain and suffering, like that would be brilliant, right? It's not a shortcut. It's the true way that I see. Probably the blending of the being and the doing, right? So the being and the doing in entrepreneurship, we are doing a lot, right? And we are being that we're doing a lot. We just don't realize it at the time. Well, so how do we take that step back? Well, what I'm noticing too with an entrepreneur before that pain point is really three things in the world of business, and hence this applies to all of life. But starting with business, three areas that I see as a great opportunity for entrepreneurs. One is in communication, two is in being my word, and three is in acknowledgement. So communication, there's listening and speaking. And so if I'm looking at a daily way of how I'm showing up with my people, whether I have people or not, or if it's just with my clients or whoever it is, number one, communication from a listening standpoint. How am I listening to other people in the room? Am I listening from a place of I already know the answer? Am I listening from I'm going to tell them what to do? Am I listening from I am right? What is the filter that I'm listening through? Am I listening from all of my experience tells me that I know better? Well, if I can help that to chill out for a little bit and listen with curiosity first. So number one, listening with curiosity, listening for what I don't know. First, when I come from that place, if I have that intention in my day, then my speaking is going to come in alignment with that. So when I'm speaking, I'm not going to be telling. I can look at making requests instead of telling others what to do. And Steve Chandler has a great distinction of expectations versus agreements. We have entrepreneurs can be moving so fast. We expect everybody else to know what to do. We expect them to do this the same way I would. but we don't actually communicate that through listening first and then creating agreements around what we're talking about. So that's a two-way street. And so if we look at that from a practical level on a day-to-day basis, if we're communicating through listening and speaking, that's number one. Second is being my word and making sure that what comes out of my mouth, I honor and I commit and I follow through on what I speak. And the second that I know that a commitment is not going to happen, I've got to clean up my mess and reconcile it with that person right up front. This is an intention. This is a practice, a daily practice of living into. And as I practice that, as I practice being my word, the value of my words increase. And if the value of my words increase, become more valuable, what I speak then creates. What I speak creates. And so I'll speak my results into existence, the more integrous I get with my word on a daily basis. And then finally is acknowledgments, acknowledging others, acknowledging people that work for you, that work with you, your clients, your vendors, anybody else, and truly acknowledging, not just say, step one is, recognizing when somebody did a good job and let them know. But the other piece is, the more meaningful piece is to give praise specifically, state a specific instance of something you saw somebody did that you really appreciate and acknowledge them for, see the truth in that, not to butter them up or to inflate their ego, but just a genuine speaking the truth into the being that you see across of them. If an entrepreneur were to practice these three things, and communication, being my word, and speaking acknowledgments into those that matter most, the creation of the business plan, the business system, comes from a totally different energy. And it's a fun, uplifting, energetic way of being that others can really rally behind way faster than if we're trying to fix a major mess that got made over the years.
Absolutely true, Mike. Yesterday I was having a conversation with Chris Smith, and we were talking about language and communication as part of business. And I said that, language or communication is not just about conveying messages. Language is actually, and communication is actually creating. It's about creation. And on the other side, when we talk about expectations versus agreements, that just is something like, it just creates an effortless way of creating business, an effortless way of creating your business results. What has been your experience with your exploration with being your word?
So my personal experience of being my word, I always had thought I held myself up to a high degree of integrity in being my word. I'm like, yeah, I've got this. I'm my word. And that's Steve Hardison, my coach, in one of my sessions with him, he challenged me on that. And he said, that's great. Let's look to see where maybe you weren't your word, or you haven't been your word. And on a lot of the big things, I was. But when I brought it back to the little things on a daily basis, I found some areas that I wasn't. And so it's to the degree that you were just talking about speaking in our language. Like I remember one that showed up is that, when I'm coming home at the end of the day, I said, I'd be home at 5:30. And this is when my office was a separate place at our own, before we moved. And I remember saying I'd be home at 5:30, and then things would come up. I would have a phone call, something else. I'd be on my way home. I'd get in the car at 5:30, and then I would let Jill know I'm on my way home. And that was already after the time I said I would be home. And I just started seeing that. When I saw that on a daily basis, I thought it was okay. I don't do that at work. I don't do that with my clients. I honor those agreements. So why am I breaking my word at home? when they are the people that matter most to me. And when I started seeing that, or when my kids would come to me and say, they're excited about something and they want to talk to me, and I'm in the middle of something, I'll say, 1 second, or I'll be with you in a minute. And it would never be 1 second or 1 minute. It would almost always be longer than that. And so those were some little things that I started seeing in my language that were habitual. They were relatively unconscious, automatic behaviors that I had. And I started waking up to some of those. And I still wake up to those now. And so now instead, it's when I notice that an agreement that I had is about to be broken, I call the person. I let them know the instant that I know that something is that isn't going to work out according to the previous way that we set. And I clean up my mess. And instead of beating myself up like I used to, I would be hard on myself. Like, no, I'm better than that. Like, I can be better than that. And it came from that energy of like, oh, I'm gonna will myself to be better than that. And then I'd fall flat on my face again. Well, instead, I forgive myself. I forgive myself for messing up, not as an excuse or a way out or a way of throwing it up, but I genuinely forgive the being that is me for messing up. I clean up my mess and I move on. I believe that every human being is a living image of God, regardless of their beliefs. And if everybody's a living image of God, so am I. And if I'm being hard on myself and beating myself up, I'm beating God up. To the degree I can be more at peace and recognize that within me, the more graceful I can be with my family, my clients, and everybody I interact with. That's what shows up for me.
Beautiful. The other thing that I wanted to ask you is, Mike, acknowledgement and appreciation are not just tools for employee engagement. They aren't just tools to keep people engaged or to give them a fake sense of like buttering them up, or kind of using them as incentive, as a strategy to get the job done or to make them do more. In fact, it's a way of being. And although we have technology which can help us scale the way we are creating these systems for acknowledgement and appreciation and all that's on the one side, but how important do you think it is for the business owners to realize that acknowledgement is a choice, it's a way of being, and it has to be consciously cultivated? And when acknowledgement becomes a significant part of your culture, and when you see everybody sincerely, authentically acknowledging the creation from others and the contribution from others, that creates an invisible kind of a connection that unites and unifies everybody in the business, involved in the business, inside and outside. And that becomes the foundation from where we call it, you create a thriving culture, which creates a thriving business. But coming back to the understanding of acknowledgement, what has been your experience with that? And what do you suggest entrepreneurs to start from? Where do you help them start from to see the power of acknowledgement?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question on how do they do that when they don't do that up front, right? Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes.
And so when they
probably making that part of technological strategy where my systems will do it, or the softwares would do it, and you get a pop-up message or you get a congratulations message sent to you. But there has to be a culture in place even for that to be received
right
openly.
Yeah, and it starts from the top in this way, right? As you mentioned, it's the entrepreneur, the owner, the founder, the CEO, and it's that person practicing acknowledgement first. So here is as a distinction that I see is not hearing this as a tool or a technique, because as business owners and entrepreneurs, like, love tools and love techniques, right? And when we put all the power in the technique or the tool to do the whatever it's going to do. So in this case, if we put all the power in the tool and the technique to give acknowledgement, well, it's on the surface looks cool, but if it isn't coming from our heart, our genuine heart, and people can tell whether you're being sincere and whether something is coming from your heart, regardless of the medium of how you communicate it. When they know you as a person and know the place you're coming from, it shows up different. So at the beginning, if you haven't done it, like for me, it's developing a conscious practice of it. And it's that practice of like, hey, maybe I don't do this right now. Well, I want to make this a conscious practice in my daily life. It's starting small. Acknowledge one person today from the heart. Just take a pause, acknowledge one person for whatever it is that you see, and just practicing that. Some people, some entrepreneurs, they'll put this on their calendars once a week just to create the conscious practice once a day. There's different ways of doing that. So if I make it a conscious practice, I can build it into my way of being, which will emanate throughout the culture. And so with that acknowledgement, it's not just saying, oh, I got to go acknowledge somebody today. No, it's looking for the good. And so another way of looking at it is that in entrepreneurship, in small businesses, well, any business, like we got people that are driven, right? And we've got this vision in our mind. We want to make this change and we want to create this greatness. And so typically what happens is everything that pops up that doesn't align with that, we see right away. And we see it as a problem that needs to be fixed. And so we spend our energy and time trying to fix the problem. And the problem with that is, ironically, is the more we speak about that, the more we're giving power, we're creating more of the problem. I'm putting that in air quotes, and we're making the issue grow. And so what we speak grows as a possibility. So if we're speaking acknowledgement into people, that is lighting them up from within. So this is true leadership, is lighting the fire from within so that they can be their best and contribute in their best way and play that forward. If I'm acknowledging people from that way, they start to see a couple of things. Number one, it quiets the noise in their own mind of, am I doing a good job or am I doing a bad job? Does my boss see me? Do they even know that I'm here? And it helps them to really be appreciated by that acknowledgement. And so they can then, being open to receiving that, creates a great chemistry in that relationship that plays it forward. And so with anything, it's a conscious practice. It's a conscious practice of speaking what the truth is. One other way of practically doing that my teams do this with is that in the EOS journey, we develop core values for an organization. So we can think of it as a way of being that we want the right person in the organization to really jive with the energetic chemistry of everybody else in the organization. It's the cultural fit. It's, do they really fit into this culture? Well, acknowledgement, you can acknowledge people for certain behaviors that demonstrate those core values on a daily or weekly basis. And that does two things. That then creates this reinforcement of our core values, and we're demonstrating these in the organization. And two, it's speaking into that person on something specific that person did that really demonstrates what that means, and acknowledging them for that in a heartfelt way really goes a long ways.
Very true. The next thing I would like to talk about, Mike, is, we say that your life is always a result of the kind of questions that you ask yourself and you answer. As you said, when we focus more, when we speak about problems, we are giving more energy to the problems. And when we talk about acknowledgement and appreciation, but then on the other side, business owners trying to be more pragmatic and practical, they are like, what you measure grows, but forgetting that what you measure grows on this side also, and there is no this side and that side. It's you and the expansion which is coming through you and from you. How do you think creating a culture where people are open to listen and learn, and I'm talking about leaders, how do you think coaching can play a great role in creating a culture of learning, and so that anything that we do comes from curiosity, a natural curiosity to learn and to create and to be open and willing to learn new things and to create new things, and in the process listen in a way that your listening itself is for the truth and for finding opportunities to connect and co-create the possibilities.
So the question is, how do you create a culture in that way?
How do you think business owners can realize the value of being open to learn, and in the process, how can coaching create, more possibilities for them and support them?
Yeah, so the way that, I guess, number one that comes to me is this willingness to be vulnerable.
Exactly. Yes.
If you have a willingness to be vulnerable, a willingness to, well, so here's what comes to me is that the way our world is set up, the way society is set up, it puts a lot of reinforcement on this. And I'm pointing to my head, my ego, knowledge, information, stuff, business strategies, new products, new paths forward, new systems, all this stuff. And there's so many different books out there that we can get great information from. And while it's great and can really help, it reinforces that we need to know or learn this technique or thing or tool of what we need to do. And while that can be valuable, if we put all of our emphasis on that without connecting back to our heart, our inner wisdom that's within us, and learning to listen to that and cultivate that and having a willingness to, we may not know how, we may not know the way, but realizing that there is a lot of value in not knowing. If I admit that I don't know what to do, or I don't have the answers, that actually invites the other person to the conversation. And when they are invited to the conversation, what they speak, you can create together from there. But if I come into a conversation that I know, I'm coming in that I know what to do, I know how to do this, I know the best way, I am right, it shuts the other person down. I mean, I think about it from my own life. I don't like to be told what to do or not to do. I know my children don't like to be told what to do or what not to do. I know my clients with their teams, their issues are around really coming back to when they are telling their people to do or not to do something, as opposed to listening first. And so there's a lot of times I wear a different shirt that says stay curious, and stay curious twofold. One, first, for me, to remind me to stay out of my intellectual knowing and to get curious about looking for what I don't know. And so the more vulnerable somebody is or willing to be, coaching helps them to see, helps to wake you up to patterns, habits, language that are relatively unconscious that may not be serving you, and helping to reflect that back to you. I know for my own sake, I've worked with coaches for the last 10 years with Steve Chandler, Michael Neal, and Steve Hardison. And every one of them has helped me to see things that I am creating without realizing it. And the more that I see that, all of a sudden, if it's a personal issue that I'm dealing with, all of a sudden, once I see that differently, something in my business just gets better. And I didn't do anything with my business, or vice versa. I resolve something the way I'm thinking about something over here, and something in my personal life shows up. Really, it's all one. I never thought about it that way years ago. But the idea is that it's an uplifting. Steve Hardison talks about it in a way that you're at a floor in this way of being, and then you're going to reach a ceiling at a certain point. And pretty soon that ceiling is going to become the floor. And then there's going to be a new ceiling, and it's a vertical lift. It's a vertical lift, and we get altitude, and we start to see things in a different way. And we can be more compassionate in our business with our people, that they are all doing the best they can with the thinking that feels real to them. Everybody has a filter of how they're experiencing life with stuff going on at home and at work. And to the degree you can see the loving essence of that person through heart-centered listening, through curiosity, it lights up their energy. It gives them aliveness. And when I have aliveness, I'm more creative. I can come up with better ideas, and things interact way better than when I'm frustrated and pushing. So I know this was kind of a roundabout way, but you tell me, does this hit the point? Or if not, help direct me to something that'll help.
Absolutely, absolutely, Mike. I was when you were talking about this, I was actually looking. I wrote a book in 2017, Hit Your Restart Button, and I suddenly remember, one of my chapters was that I know because I don't know, and coming from that, I don't know, gives you so much of space to explore. It gives you the possibility of infinite opportunities to explore, and it doesn't limit. The moment you get stuck at a level where I know, and there is a pressure that the outside world is expecting me to know everything, that is the kind of stress that mostly entrepreneurs put themselves under, and then they build pressure, and then they become reluctant to be vulnerable enough to ask. And when you don't ask, the answer is always no. And when you don't ask, you don't have the answer, because you shut yourself in your own worldview. But then in my own journey, what I learned is that it's as simple as reaching out to someone and asking, and then you create an opportunity for a conversation, and then you build that momentum with enough people, and that's when I see that the universe starts creating things for you. Universe starts supporting you in the process, and whatever you create is far better than what you even might have expected to create. And that happens only when you start creating conversations from the point of view of, oh, I don't know, and I want to learn. It's as simple as that.
It is. Can I share something else that just occurred for me as you were explaining that?
Yes, absolutely, Mike.
There's this I don't know, like you said, it's in our world. Somehow it gets ingrained in many of us that it's a sign of weakness, or it's something that's bad or wrong with me, and that I should know. I should. And so that belief of I should sends me down a rabbit trail of information, reading, seminars, like all these different tips and techniques. And so what happens is that when I come from that place energetically in my body, I feel unsettled. And if I really tune into that, if my body, my energy, my being feels tight, unsettled, clenched, in that way, the I don't know, I'm creating more issues around what I'm creating with that energy. So what's really important that I discovered from my own life is that my body, as Joe Dispenza talks about, our body is a great barometer of what we're thinking. What we think and what we feel create our state of being as a possibility. And so to the degree I can align the I don't know with a positive feeling, with a feeling of interest, curiosity. So the reason why I use curiosity, like children are great at being curious. Like they like to explore and ask questions. They don't make it mean anything about them that they're asking questions, right? They're fun, they're open, they're energized, and therefore things show up for them. And so if I bring that energy and I align that place that I don't know is a positive feeling, if I start to feel that in my body, and I can start to awaken to possibility in a way that gets very expansive very quickly versus the other way gets very contracted, it closes in. And so one thing that I talk with my entrepreneurs about and coaches that I coach is to start tuning in, start bringing awareness to this. At the end of every day, in a journal or a notebook, write down a number on a 1 to 10 scale. How did your body feel today? Was it tight or was it loose? Was it constricted or was it open? Because it can start pointing back to useful or unuseful thinking on a 1 to 10 scale. Not that you need to fix it or change the number, but just to bring awareness to it. And the more awareness we bring to that, all of a sudden, we start to see habitual patterns of thought that may not be useful. And we don't need to do anything with it. This is not a doing. This is a noticing. And the more we notice that, all of a sudden, new possibilities start opening up in my business and family life. That's what I noticed for me.
Fantastic, Mike. What we agree together is that our bodies, our mind, and our businesses are not something like, fixed or something which cannot be changed, or they are not permanent. They are malleable, and you can play around, you can explore, you can experiment, and you just have to have this commitment and make a decision and stay committed and curious on your journey. And you don't need to know what's going to happen. I mean, you can have goals, but at the same time, you need to know that this is exactly the result that you are going to create, because you need to know who you are being in the process of creating these results. And you need to understand that you are working through the support of a natural system which has been given to us. And if you can just listen, you have feedback every moment from your own body, from your own mind, and your feelings are telling you who you're being as a business owner, who you're being as a parent, and who you're being as a person, everywhere, every moment. And I think this was a truly insightful conversation with you, Mike, today on creating a business-centered life, as well as creating a business-centered, being-centered life and a being-centered business. Thank you so much for sharing all your experiences and your insights, Mike. It was lovely talking to you.
And thank you for the insightful questions. And I really enjoyed our conversation together. This was truly a pleasure and an honor to be with you.
It was an honor for me as well, as the master of the day on my show, Moments with Masters. Thank you so much, Mike. Namaste from India.
Beautiful. Be blessed. I love you.
Thank you so much, Mike. Love you.